Hi everyone, Bolu Lawal here from Inspired Careers. Welcome to this video where I will be discussing how to prepare for an online interview. Now, in today's world, we have so many employers going the digital route in terms of interviews. Many interviews because of COVID, because of the state of traveling in most places, in most parts of the world. Interviews are now increasingly being done online by many employers, and this video is going to teach you're going to learn how to prepare for video interviews, how to put your best foot forward, how to ace the interview, all the things you need to do to put yourself in a prime position to get the best out of your interview. The key to doing well in online interviews is to project that air of confidence, that air of it. I mean, and it's true for physical interviews as well. The more confident you appear, the more in touch, you can get with your interviewer, the higher your chances of getting the job or being successful in that interview. But beyond being confident, you need to be able to show your personality. You need to be able to communicate to your interviewer and allow your interviewer have a glimpse of who you are really, so that he or she can understand who he is hiring. That is very important. That is very key in the interviewing process, in the digital or online or video interview process. But video interviews come with their own, should I say, inherent challenges, a specific set of challenges that are peculiar to having a video interview. And that's what this video is all about. That's what this is set out, to help you to overcome. Let's go. So first off is to ensure that you prepare for your online interview like you would prepare for a physical interview. You need to remember to research the company. You need to remember to practice your interview questions. You need to remember to, go over all the questions that you would like to ask the employer. That an interview is online doesn't mean you shouldn't still go through all the necessary preparations that you would normally go through if you were preparing for a physical interview. Very important. The truth is, your interviewer is going to be looking to employ someone who's knowledgeable about the role they're applying for, and so you must be able to project yourself as that person to be able to get the job. Next, you need to dress the part. It goes without saying, if you're applying for a very formal position, you probably need to wear a shirt, wear a tie, wear a suit. You cannot say that because the interview is online, you're going to wear a t-shirt. If you're applying to be vice president, for example, of a particular company, you need to dress the part. You need to ensure that your outfit is appropriate. Many times with an online interview, you are at home and you need to dress that part. You cannot say that because you're at home, you dress down and all that. Dress the part, dress to impress, dress the way you would have dressed if you were going for a physical interview. You also need to test your equipment. Now, this is a problem that is very peculiar with an online interview. We've seen many situations and circumstances where the interview starts and then your camera refuses to run for some reason, or your laptop microphone doesn't work for whatever reasons. Before the interview, you need to test all your equipment, test all the things that you need to test, ensure your laptop is charged or your phone is charged if you're using your phone, and all that. Related to that is getting to your interview on time. The same way you wouldn't go for a physical interview at the time of the interview. You wouldn't walk into the interview room or the office at exactly the time of the interview. It's the same way you shouldn't log into Zoom or whatever platform the interview is taking place at the exact time. If your interview says 1 p.m., or whatever, you wouldn't log in at 1 p.m. It's a good idea to get there earlier, 15 minutes before, 30 minutes before even is okay, so that the initial point I made, You can test your equipment. It helps you go over things to be sure that you're fine, to be sure that everything is working. And you can go into your interview being calm, being collected, and you have everything together, as opposed to being all over the place. It also helps you to set up properly, to ensure that you have a good camera angle. You don't just fit into the whole frame like this, and all that. You have a good angle, good space to the sides, good space between the top of your head and the top of the frame, and all of that, just to be sure that you have a really good interview. The next is something very important. You need to make eye contact. Optimal, what I call optimal eye contact. See, same way you wouldn't be in a physical interview and when you're asked a question, tell us a bit about yourself, instead of looking at the interviewer and answering the question. My name is Bolu Lawal. I come from, I do this, I do that, I have experience in this. That's not what you do in a physical interview. So you do not do that in an online interview either. You look straight at the camera, you look straight at your interviewer, and you answer the questions. Very important, very, very critical to establishing trust, to establishing a connection between you and your interviewer. The next point, very important as well, is to practice your online or video interview skills ahead of time. See, this is important because there is a peculiarity to video interviews, yeah? If you're not used to video, then there is a slight chance, there's a slight probability that it could be awkward, your first or your first few online interviews. It could get awkward. So you need to practice it with a friend. You need to practice, answering questions online with a colleague, anybody really. If you have a career coach who's guiding you, it's a good idea to practice with your career coach as well. So practice for your video interview, practice for your online interview. Very, very important. Okay, so the next point is to pay attention to how you sound. Okay, this is very important. A lot of the times in video interviews, people pay attention to people pay so much attention to how they look on camera that they forget that how they sound is equally as important. So you want to pay attention to things like how fast you're speaking, how clearly you are speaking, your tone, your pitch. These are all very important in an online interview. You don't want to appear like you're not confident. You don't want to give off an air of arrogance. That this is where practice comes into place. You practice, and then you get better at this. And in practicing, you can ask the person you're practicing with if your tone is good, if they can hear you okay, and all that. Sometimes there's a bad connection with online interviews, and so you want to speak with a reasonable pace. Okay, so that even if the person has a bad connection, the person can still make out what you're saying. You need to speak with the right kind of intonation, inflection, and all that. You don't have to sound like a computer. Okay, you should still come across as a normal human being. And so you want to pay attention to not just what you're saying, but also how you're saying what you're saying, because that is important in helping the interviewer to get a glimpse, okay, of how you really feel about, the subject matter, yeah? And that leads me on to my next point, which is about writing out, a few notes. It's important, or it's helpful, I should say, to write out a few notes when you're in an online interview, but don't refer to them all the time. Don't make it obvious that you have notes written down, and don't read from the notes. Essentially, if you're asked a question, you can't start my name is Bolu Lawal, I do this, I do that. Obviously, it's clear you're reading from a note. Even if you have it on your computer screen, you still shouldn't stare at it too much to the extent that the interviewer knows that you're reading from a script. Okay, you could have notes written down, very helpful to do that. But as much as possible, have the contents of your notes, understand the contents of your note, so that even if you were to refer to it, it'll be just, a quick glance here, a quick glance there, rather than, just reading out a script. It helps you come across as more authentic. It helps you come across as more knowledgeable in the topic or in whatever you're talking about. Next point, of course, you want to eliminate interruptions. If you live with people, you're gonna have to tell them that, and I don't really need to say this, you're gonna have to tell them that you have an interview. If you have kids, you're gonna wanna, get a room where you can be alone for the duration of the interview, so that there are no interruptions, so that there are no, there's nothing worse than when you're having an interview and there are constant distractions and you have to be apologizing to the interviewer. Not good at all. Okay, so try to avoid that. Minimize interruptions. Get a part of the house where you can be quiet, where there's some quiet, where you don't have any interruptions, where there's minimal disturbance. You get the picture. Also, you want to maintain a good posture on camera. Now this is important because it projects an image to the interviewer. So you don't want to slouch, okay, in your chair. You want to sit upright. You want to have the right posture, in your or during your interview. Many times the interview is taking place at home, and so there's a tendency for you to be a bit more relaxed, but try not to let that translate into how you speak or what you're saying. Try to ensure that you really are confident, and that always has a bearing on how you're seated and your posture and all of that. And this is where non-verbal communication is important. You need to use facial expressions, you need to use body language, and all of that to communicate with your interviewer. All of that put together affects how you are perceived in an online interview. Next point is to treat your online interview as you would a face-to-face conversation. So things like not allowing the other person to finish their sentences before you barge in, not a good idea. So allow your interviewer to ask their questions fully. Allow your interviewer to completely express an idea that they're trying to pass across, and then you can respond. You can signal, oh, can I respond now, or can I say something now? It's always a good idea to treat it as much as a face-to-face conversation as you would. So don't interrupt your interviewer or your prospective employer, and don't cut them short midway through expressing an idea. Again, something that helps is you want to ensure that your interview isn't just question and answer, question and answer, question and answer. You want to make sure that you treat it like, feel free to comment, okay? Feel free to I wouldn't say make jokes, but I wouldn't say make jokes so that you don't appear unserious, but try to lighten up the atmosphere. Don't make it all serious and serious. Try to douse the tension a bit, make it relaxed, make it something enjoyable for both parties. So it's not just rigid and stiff. You can pass a comment, for instance, on a question before answering the question. Make sure you answer the question though, okay? And things like that, just so that you come across as a real person, as an actual human being who has a sense of humor, at the same time who's also professional enough to know the content of the interview and the questions that are being asked. And so in conclusion, I'd say that the goal of an online interview and the goal of a physical interview is the same, really. The entire point is to show the interviewer that you are the right person for the job. And in essence, what that means is coming across as a real person, one, and two, coming across as a real person who knows their stuff. And ultimately, you want to spend as little time as possible during a video interview focused on the video part of it. Instead, you want to focus on making a connection with your interviewer, because this, at the end of the day, is what determines whether the interviewer leaves that place feeling like he has made a connection with you or not. And so if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, give it a thumbs up, or you could drop a comment in the comment section, and let's talk about any of the things that I've discussed in this video about how to prepare for a video or an online interview. Once again, my name is Bull Lawal from Inspired Careers, and at Inspired Careers, we are totally committed to delivering massive value to you as you aspire to make progress and accelerate your career.